They ignored the warning. 4 minutes later, the strongest fleet in the galaxy became a debris field drifting through the void. 12 dreadnoughts, each one capable of cracking a planet in half, reduced to scattered atoms and burning metal. No survivors, no distress calls, just silence. This is the story of how 300 years of peace ended in 4 minutes of violence. This is the story of what happens when you forget that predators never stop being predators. They just learn to hide their teeth. And this is the story of Admiral Kira Thornfield, the woman who reminded the galaxy why humanity spent 10,000 years climbing to the top of Earth's food chain. 300 years of comfortable lies. The bridge of the Confederation dreadnought, Stellar Dominion, hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Holographic displays cast blue light across the faces of the crew representatives from 7 different species, all working in perfect harmony. Outside the reinforced viewing window, the Nexus sector stretched out in all directions, empty space dotted with distant stars, peaceful and boring. Admiral Kira Thornfield stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the stars with the patience of someone who had spent 35 years staring at the same view. She was 58 years old with steel gray hair pulled back in a regulation bun and eyes the color of winter ice. Her uniform bore the insignia of the combined fleet 12 dreadnoughts under her command, the most powerful military force the Galactic Confederation could field. For 3 months they had been patrolling this sector. 3 months of absolutely nothing happening. "Sensor sweep complete, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb from his station. "No anomalies detected. All quiet." "Again," Kira said, her voice carrying the flat tone of someone who had heard the same report 1,000 times. Behind her, Commander Garrett Vance shifted his weight. He was 35, ambitious, sharp-featured, with the restless energy of a man who believed his talents were being wasted on patrol duty. "Ma'am, if I may, we've been out here for 92 days without a single incident. The Nexus sector has been secure for decades. Perhaps Command might consider reassigning us to—" "They'll reassign us when they reassign us, Commander." Kira didn't turn around. "Until then, we maintain our patrol pattern. Routine keeps crews sharp. Boredom keeps them alive." Vance bit back whatever response he'd been forming. He'd served under Admiral Thornfield long enough to know that arguing was pointless. She was the Iron Lady of the Void, respected, feared, and absolutely inflexible when it came to discipline and protocol. What Vance didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Kira Thornfield understood boredom better than any of them could imagine. Because for the past 30 years, she'd been living the most elaborate deception in galactic history. The Galactic Confederation was 300 years old. 147 species had joined together in a great democratic union, pledging to settle disputes through dialogue and negotiation rather than violence. 3 centuries of peace. 3 centuries of prosperity. 3 centuries of comfortable certainty that civilization had evolved beyond the primitive need for war. Humanity had been part of that peace since the beginning. The human territories consisted of 12 star systems along the galactic rim frontier space, mostly agricultural colonies and trading posts. Quiet, unassuming, contributing their share of wheat and manufactured goods to the Confederation economy, but otherwise unremarkable. Human ships were gray and boxy, built for cargo hauling rather than combat. Human ambassadors spoke in soft tones about cooperation and mutual benefit. Human culture celebrated farmers and engineers and teachers, builders, not warriors. For 300 years, humanity had been the galaxy's most boring neighbor, and the galaxy had believed every word of it. "Admiral," Webb called out, pulling Kira from her thoughts. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Confederation Central Command." "Put it through." The holographic display shimmered, resolving into the face of Fleet Admiral Marcus Kane, a Centauran distinguished by his blue-tinted skin and the elaborate cranial ridges that denoted high rank in his species. His expression was troubled. "Admiral Thornfield, we have a developing situation. The Zarn Dominion has issued demands for tribute from 3 human border colonies, including New Harvest. They're claiming historical territorial rights to the sector and demanding immediate compliance or," he paused, "or military action." Kira's expression didn't change, but her hands tightened slightly behind her back. "New Harvest. Yes, I'm aware your daughter is stationed there. Lara, 32 years old, agricultural engineer. She'd inherited her mother's stubborn determination and her father's gentle optimism. She grew wheat on a colony world where nothing should have been able to grow, teaching farmers how to coax life from stubborn soil. She wrote letters every week about the children she mentored, about the community she was helping to build. She was everything good about humanity that Kira fought to protect." "What's the Council's response?" Kira asked, her voice still perfectly level. Fleet Admiral Kane's ridges darkened the Centauran equivalent of a grimace. The Council is voting on Article 12, military protection for threatened colonies. He hesitated. Early counts suggest the vote will fail. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Article 12 was the Confederation's mutual defense clause, the promise that an attack on one member's territory was an attack on all. It was the foundation of their 300-year peace. It was supposed to be automatic. How can the vote fail? Vance demanded, stepping forward. The Zarn are threatening civilians. 40,000 people live on New Harvest alone. The Council can't just... The Council can do whatever the majority votes to do, Commander, Kane said wearily. Many representatives believe that military intervention risks escalating into a wider war. They're arguing that diplomatic pressure and economic sanctions are more appropriate. Diplomatic pressure, Kira repeated, and something in her tone made Vance take an involuntary step back. While 40,000 civilians wait to see if barbarians will respect strongly worded letters. Admiral, I understand your personal connection to... This isn't about my personal connection, Fleet Admiral. This is about whether the Confederation stands by its founding principles or whether those principles only apply when they're convenient. Kane's expression was pained. I'm sorry, Admiral. I truly am. But my hands are tied until the Council votes. Maintain your position in the Nexus sector. If the vote passes, you'll receive new orders immediately. The transmission ended. Kira stood perfectly still, staring at the blank holographic display. The bridge crew watched her nervously. They'd served under the Iron Lady long enough to know that stillness meant she was thinking. And when Admiral Kira Thornfield thought hard enough about something, the galaxy had a tendency to shift on its axis. Commander Vance, she said quietly, what's our current distance from New Harvest? 4 days at maximum burn, ma'am. And if we left now without authorization, Vance blinked. Ma'am, that would be a court-martial offense. Abandoning our patrol route without orders. I asked for a travel time, Commander. Not a legal opinion. 4 days, Admiral. Kira nodded slowly. Then she turned and walked toward her ready room. At the door, she paused. Continue standard patrol pattern. I'll be in my quarters. Do not disturb me unless the situation changes. The door hissed shut behind her. The provocation. 48 hours later, the vote came in. Article 12 failed. 89 votes against 58 in favor. The Confederation Council had decided that defending 3 human colonies wasn't worth the risk of war. Kira received the news alone in her ready room, reading the official transmission on her personal display. She read it 3 times, her face expressionless. Then she archived the message and sat in silence, hands folded on her desk. They'd voted from safe chambers on the capital world light years from any danger. They'd debated the philosophical implications of military force versus diplomatic engagement. They'd carefully weighed the political costs and benefits, and they'd decided that Lyra's life, that 40,000 lives, weren't worth defending. Kira's personal comm chimed. A priority message encrypted marked urgent. She opened it. The screen filled with Lyra's face, young, smiling with Kira's ice-blue eyes and her father's warm smile. She was standing in a wheat field, golden grain swaying behind her in the colony's artificial breeze. Hi, Mom, Lyra said, and Kira's chest tightened at how normal her daughter sounded. I know you're probably freaking out about the Zarn situation. Don't worry too much. Okay, we've got good people here. If anything happens, we've got shelters. The engineers say they can hold for weeks if necessary. Lyra glanced over her shoulder at the wheat field. I wanted you to see this. Remember how Dad always said nothing good grows from fear? Well, we got the hybrid strain to take root. This crop is going to feed 15,000 people this year. All those kids I've been teaching, they did this. They're building something beautiful out here, Mom. She looked back at the camera and her smile faded slightly. I know what you're thinking, that you should be here protecting them. That's always been your first instinct, protect everyone, even if it costs you everything. She shook her head gently. But you taught me something else too. You taught me that sometimes building is more important than fighting. So that's what I'm doing, building. Lyra stepped closer to the camera. I love you, Mom. Whatever happens, I'm proud to be your daughter, and I'm proud of what we're creating here. Tell Dad I'll write him soon. Love you both. The message ended. Kira sat in the darkness of her ready room, staring at the blank screen. Outside, the Nexus sector continued its eternal rotation. Stars burned. Space remained cold and empty and indifferent. She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something fundamental had changed in Admiral Kira Thornfield. Something had been cut away clean and surgical and permanent. The attack came 6 hours later. Kira was on the bridge when the emergency transmission burst through, garbled, broken, filled with the sounds of explosions and screaming. Under attack, Zarn Fleet orbital bombardment. Civilian sectors, please. The transmission cut out. Get me new harvest, Kira ordered, her voice cutting through the sudden chaos on the bridge. Now. Webb worked frantically at his station. Can't establish a clear link, ma'am. Massive interference. I'm reading energy signatures consistent with plasma bombardment. Multiple impacts. Show me. The main display shifted to a long-range sensor feed of the new harvest system. Even at this distance, the signatures were unmistakable. 3 Zarn heavy cruisers in stable orbit, systematically firing on the colony's population centers. The planet's defensive shields flickered and failed under the sustained assault. How long? Vance asked quietly. At that bombardment rate, 6 hours until the colony is completely sterilized. Kira's hands gripped the command chair's armrest. Send emergency request to Confederation Command. Request immediate authorization to engage. Sending now, ma'am. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. 15. The response came back. Request denied. Maintain current position. Diplomatic channels being pursued. Kira read the message twice. Then she stood from her command chair and walked to the main viewport. Behind her, the bridge crew watched in terrible silence. On the sensor display, New Harvest continued to burn. Ma'am, Webb said hesitantly, we're receiving another transmission from the colony. Audio only. It's badly degraded. Play it. Static filled the bridge. Then through the interference, a voice, young female, terrified, but trying to be brave. Mom, if you're listening, the sky is burning. The shelters didn't hold. They're burning the wheat fields. Everything we built. Lyra's voice broke. Tell Dad I love him. Tell him his hybrid wheat. It was beautiful, Mom. The children learned so much. We made something good here. Static. Silence. Nothing. Signal lost. Webb reported, his voice barely above a whisper. Kira stood at the viewport staring at the stars. Her reflection in the reinforced glass showed no expression. No tears. No rage. Just stillness. Behind her, Vance stepped forward. Admiral, we could reach New Harvest in 4 days. If we left now, we have our orders, Commander. Ma'am, your daughter is down there. I'm aware of my daughter's location. Kira turned and Vance actually stepped back at what he saw in her eyes. I'm also aware of our orders from Confederation Command. We will maintain our position in the Nexus sector. Is that understood? Yes, ma'am, Vance said quietly. Kira walked back to her ready room. At the door, she paused. I'll be in my quarters. Standard patrol pattern. Do not disturb me. The door closed. The bridge crew stood in uncomfortable silence, listening to the sounds of distant death crackling through their communications array. 6 hours later, New Harvest fell silent. 40,000 people, men, women, children, farmers, and teachers, and engineers and dreamers, all gone. Reduced to ash and scorched earth in the smoking ruins of what could have been. The Zarn fleet departed. Mission accomplished. No consequences. No response. Just 300 years of comfortable peace, choosing to remain comfortable. And in her ready room, Admiral Kira Thornfield sat in darkness, holding a photo of a young woman standing in a wheat field, smiling at the camera with pride and hope, and absolute trust that her mother would always protect her. The photo was all that remained. Earth's silence. The next morning, Kira emerged from her ready room at 0600 hours, looking exactly as she always did, uniform pressed hair, perfect face composed. If she'd slept, no one could tell. If she'd grieved, she'd done it in private. She was the Iron Lady. Iron didn't crack. Status report, she said, settling into her command chair. Webb hesitated before answering. Ma'am, we've been monitoring transmissions from Earth Command. There's something unusual happening. Explain. 6 hours ago, all communications from Earth and the human colonies went dark. No transmissions, no responses, no routine check-ins. It's like they all went offline simultaneously. Kira's expression didn't change. All human territories. Every single one, ma'am. 12 star systems. Just silent. Around the bridge, crew members exchanged nervous glances. 300 years of reliable human participation in galactic affairs, and suddenly nothing. It was unprecedented. Confederation Command is requesting status updates from all human vessels. Webb continued. They're concerned about a possible systems failure or... His console started screaming. Every sensor on the bridge lit up simultaneously. Warning alarms blared. The main display erupted with contact signatures appearing across the galaxy like flowers blooming in fast forward. Report, Kira snapped. Webb's hands flew across his console, his voice rising with disbelief. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from human space. Hundreds of ships, no thousands, all powering up simultaneously. How is this? Show me. The main display shifted to show the galactic map. Red contact markers were appearing everywhere, hundreds, then thousands, spreading across human territory like wildfire. Those merchant ships near the trade lanes, Webb said, his voice shaking. They're shedding their outer hulls. Admiral, there are warships underneath. Military-grade weapons platforms. How did we miss this? Keep reporting, Lieutenant. The museum shipyards orbiting New Terra, they're coming online. Full military production capacity. The energy signatures are off the scale, and there are ships appearing from deep space. Stealth vessels dropping cloak. Admiral, there are thousands of them. Vance stepped up beside Kira's chair. This is impossible. We have comprehensive intelligence on every Confederation member's military capacity. Humans had 12 star systems and a merchant fleet. Where did these ships come from? Kira said nothing. She simply watched the display as the true scope of humanity's hidden strength revealed itself to a shocked galaxy. 240 warships near the trade lanes, 1,200 emerging from the shipyards, 2,000 more materializing from dark space where they'd been waiting in perfect silence. 3,400 warships total. Built over 300 years of careful, patient, methodical preparation. Built while the galaxy debated philosophy and voted on principles and congratulated itself on being civilized. Ma'am, Webb said quietly, we're receiving a priority transmission. It's encrypted, using old military codes. It's addressed to you personally. Put it through. The display cleared. A single line of text appeared. Protocol Fenrir. Released. Welcome home, Admiral. Kira read the message once. Then she stood and walked to her ready room. Over her shoulder, she said, Commander Vance, you have the bridge. Maintain current position. Admiral, what's happening? What's Protocol Fenrir? Kira paused at the door. For the first time in 35 years of service, she smiled. It was not a comforting expression. 30 years ago, Commander, I took an oath, a secret one, in a black ops ceremony that officially never happened. I swore that if the Confederation ever abandoned humanity in our hour of need, we would remember. And if they ever betrayed us, we would activate. She touched the door panel. Before stepping through, she looked back at her crew, these good people from 7 different species who had served under her loyally for years. For 300 years, the galaxy forgot something important. They forgot that apex predators don't stop hunting just because they learn to smile. Her expression hardened. They're about to remember. The door closed. 60 seconds later, it opened again. Admiral Kira Thornfield stepped back onto the bridge wearing a uniform that nobody recognized. Black instead of blue. No Confederation insignia. Instead, on her chest, a patch showing Earth rising over a lunar horizon surrounded by stars. The uniform she'd kept hidden in a sealed locker for 30 years. The uniform of the Earth Defense Force. Commander Vance, she said calmly, I am formally resigning my commission in the Confederation Combined Fleet. You are now in command of this vessel. My recommendation is that you maintain current patrol pattern and report this development to Confederation Command immediately. Vance stared at her. Admiral, you can't just, I can, Commander. And I am. She walked to the communication station. Lieutenant Webb, I need a secure channel to the Earth Defense Command. Authorization code Thornfield Sigma 7. Webb's fingers moved automatically, muscle memory overriding confusion. Channel open, ma'am. Kira spoke clearly into the comm. This is Admiral Kira Thornfield, Earth Defense Force Service number 2187 Alpha, confirming receipt of Protocol Fenrir activation, requesting immediate tactical update and fleet assignment. The response came back immediately in a voice that was calm and professional and utterly devoid of emotion. Admiral Thornfield, welcome home. Your fleet is assembling now. All ships ready for deployment. Awaiting your command. Understood. Transmit tactical data to my personal coordinates. I'll be transferring to my flagship within the hour. Acknowledge, Admiral. Earth Defense Command sends its condolences regarding your daughter. She was one of 40,000. They will all be remembered. Kira's hand tightened on the communication panel, the only sign of emotion she allowed herself. Thank you, Thornfield out. She turned to face her former crew. They stared at her like they'd never seen her before. In a sense, they hadn't. For 300 years, Kira said quietly, humanity played the role the galaxy wanted us to play. Peaceful, harmless, boring. We grew wheat and transported cargo and smiled and nodded when the council made its decisions. She clasped her hands behind her back. But we never forgot what we were. what we had to be if we were going to survive in a galaxy that votes on whether your children deserve to live. You were building a military, Vance breathed. All this time, while pretending to be merchants and farmers. We weren't pretending, Commander. We are farmers. We are merchants. But we're also something else, something older, something the galaxy forgot because we let them forget. She walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Every human is trained from childhood. Basic military skills alongside reading and mathematics. Every merchant ship is a warship in disguise. Every museum shipyard is a fully operational military production facility. Every colony has underground bunkers and weapon caches and evacuation protocols. She turned back to face them. We hoped we'd never need any of it. We really did. And now, Vance asked, now the Zarn Dominion is going to learn a lesson. One we learned 10,000 years ago on Earth, fighting our way to the top of the food chain. Kira's expression was cold as winter. Peace is a beautiful dream, but it only works when everyone agrees to dream it. The moment someone decides to be a nightmare, her smile returned sharp and terrible. You need hunters to kill the monsters. A shuttle was waiting when Kira left the Stellar Dominion. Through the viewport, Vance and the crew watched it accelerate toward human space, toward the growing fleet of ships that had been hiding in plain sight for 3 centuries. Webb pulled up the tactical display one more time, staring at the numbers. 3,400 warships. How did we miss this? How did anybody miss this? Because they wanted to, Vance said quietly. The galaxy wanted to believe in peace so badly that they stopped looking for predators. They forgot that the most dangerous hunters are the ones that know how to wait. On the display, the human fleet was beginning to move. Not scrambling, not panicking, moving with the calm precision of a force that had been planning this moment for 300 years. And at its head, a single flagship bearing the name Retribution, Admiral Kira Thornfield's new command. The Iron Lady was going to war, and the galaxy was about to discover why humanity had spent 3 centuries preparing for a fight they hoped would never come. The Zarn fleet was celebrating. Commander Thrax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Inevitable Conquest, watching the holographic recordings of New Harvest's destruction with deep satisfaction. 40,000 humans reduced to ash in 6 hours. Clean, efficient, a message delivered with absolute clarity. He was a Zarn 7 feet tall, covered in chitinous armor plates that reflected the bridge lights like polished obsidian. His species had evolved as apex predators on a death world where only the strong survived. The Zarn Dominion believed in one fundamental truth. Power was the only language that mattered. Sir, his tactical officer reported, all ships accounted for. 0 casualties. Supplies at 93%. The fleet is ready to return to home space. Thrak nodded, mandibles clicking in approval. Set course 4. Every alarm on the bridge started screaming simultaneously. Contact, the tactical officer shouted. Multiple contacts appearing on long-range sensors. 200, no 240 vessels. Unknown configuration. They just appeared out of nowhere. Thrak's 4 eyes narrowed. Impossible. There's nothing in this sector. Show me. The holographic display shifted, showing the approaching fleet. The ships were unlike anything in the Confederation database. Sleek, angular, matte black hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No unnecessary decorations, no proud emblems. Just pure, purposeful design. Origin, Thrak demanded. Unknown, sir. Wait. The tactical officer's voice rose in confusion. Sir, they're broadcasting in galactic standard. The message is, it's addressed to us specifically. Play it. A voice filled the bridge. Female. Cold. Absolutely devoid of emotion or mercy. Zarn Dominion Fleet. This is Admiral Kira Thornfield of the Earth Defense Force. You have committed an act of genocide against human civilians. You will now face the consequences of that action. There will be no negotiation. No surrender will be accepted. You chose to be monsters. Now face the hunters. Silence fell across the bridge. Then Thrak started laughing. It was a harsh clicking sound that sent shivers through his crew. Humans, the grain farmers, and cargo haulers, they send 200 ships against my armada. He gestured at the tactical display showing his own force, 200 heavy cruisers, each one battle-tested and crewed by warriors bred for combat. They don't even have a military. This is suicide. Sir, the tactical officer said nervously, those ship configurations. I'm reading energy signatures that don't match anything in our database. Their power output is, I don't care if they're powered by captured stars, Thrak snarled. We have numbers, we have experience, and we have the Zarn way. He stood to his full height. All ship battle formation. We'll crush these farmers and add their ships to our trophy collection. Today, the galaxy learns that the Zarn Dominion answers to no one. The two fleets continued their approach. Zarn heavy cruisers spreading into a classic encirclement formation. Human ships maintaining a tight defensive sphere, moving with synchronized precision that was almost mechanical. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Thrak watched the tactical display with predatory anticipation. This would be over in minutes. He had no idea how right he was. Aboard the Retribution, Admiral Kira Thornfield stood in her command center surrounded by holographic displays showing every angle of the approaching battle. Her crew, 40 men and women in Black Earth Defense Force uniforms, worked in absolute silence. No unnecessary chatter, no nervous tension, just professional focus. They'd been training for this moment their entire lives. Captain Helena Morse stood at Kira's right hand, her intelligence officer, 40 years old with auburn hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She'd spent the last decade analyzing Zarn military doctrine, studying every battle they'd ever fought, learning to predict their movements before they made them. Analysis, Kira said quietly. Textbook Zarn encirclement, Helena replied. They're assuming we'll try to break through their weakest point. They've reinforced their flanks, left their center deliberately weak as a trap. The moment we commit to a breakthrough attempt, they'll collapse the formation and crush us. And if we were a conventional force, it would work. Kira's eyes never left the tactical display. Time to contact. 4 minutes, Admiral. Kira touched a control on her command panel. All ships, this is Thornfield. Execute Protocol Shepard. Single vessel forward. Everyone else holds position. Across the human fleet, one small ship detached from the formation and accelerated forward. It was tiny compared to the Zarn heavy cruisers, barely the size of a frigate, a quarter the mass of the enemy's smallest vessel. It looked like prey offering itself to predators. They're sending one ship. Thrak stared at the display in disbelief. One ship, is this a joke? His tactical officer was sweating despite the climate-controlled bridge. Sir, that single vessel's power output it's reading higher than our entire flagship. That shouldn't be possible. It's a sensor ghost, or a bluff? Thrak leaned forward. Send a squadron to intercept. Disable it. I want to see what kind of technology these farmers think they can threaten us with. 10 Zarn heavy cruisers broke formation, accelerating toward the lone human ship. Their weapon systems came online, targeting lasers, painting the small vessel with lethal precision. The human shell continued its approach utterly untroubled. Sir, the tactical officer said, voice shaking now, that ship is broadcasting. More threats. No, sir, it's a countdown. The voice that filled the Zarn bridge was artificial, synthesized, completely emotionless. It spoke in perfect galactic standard. Hostile contact confirmed. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this engagement. Failure to comply will result in defensive action. This is your only warning. Thrak's mandibles clicked in amusement. They're warning us 10 against 1, and they're 20 seconds, the synthesized voice continued. Sir, recommend we pull back and fire a warning shot, Thrak ordered. Show them what Zarn weapons can do. The lead Zarn cruiser fired. A brilliant lance of blue energy, enough power to vaporize a small moon, streaked across the void and struck the human ship's shields. The energy beam touched the shield and simply ceased to exist. Not deflected, not absorbed, not scattered. It hit the shield and vanished as if it had never been fired at all, erased from reality at the moment of contact. On the Zarn bridge, every alarm started screaming. Impossible, Thrak breathed. 10 seconds, said the calm voice. All ships full bombardment, overwhelmed their shields. 9 Zarn heavy cruisers opened fire simultaneously, enough destructive force to crack a planet's crust. Energy beams and plasma bolts and kinetic projectiles all converging on one tiny ship. Every single shot vanished the instant it touched those impossible shields. 5 seconds. Fire everything, Thrak roared. 3 seconds. What are they? 1 second. The human ship fired once. The weapon that emerged from its bow was nothing like anything the Zarn had ever seen. It wasn't an energy beam. It wasn't a projectile. It was something else, a distortion in space itself, a tear in the fabric of reality that moved faster than light could travel. It struck the lead Zarn cruiser amidships. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. The ship continued forward, seemingly undamaged. Then the crew realized they were looking at stars through what should have been solid hull. The front half of the cruiser was simply gone. Not destroyed, not vaporized, gone, erased, removed from existence with surgical precision, leaving a perfectly clean edge where metal and machinery ended and vacuum began. The remaining crew had exactly 3 seconds to scream before emergency bulkheads sealed and life support failed. The dead Hulk continued forward on momentum, alone a monument to what happened when you ignored a countdown. One ship destroyed, the synthesized voice announced. 8 vessels remaining. You have 5 seconds to begin withdrawal. Thrax stared at the tactical display, his 4 eyes wide with something he hadn't felt in 2 decades of military service. Fear. Fall back, he whispered. Sir, fall back all ships, emergency retreat. The 9 surviving Zarn cruisers tried to turn, tried to run, tried to escape. The human ship fired again. This time the weapon was different. Instead of erasing matter, it did something worse. The second Zarn cruiser began to glow from the inside its hull, becoming translucent like glass. Through the transparent metal, the crew could see their own ship's internal structure, could watch as their power core started to destabilize. The reactor went critical. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, there was nothing left but expanding gas and scattered atoms. 2 ships destroyed, the calm voice continued. 7 remaining. Withdrawal window expired, engaging defensive protocols. The human ship moved. It shouldn't have been able to accelerate that fast. Physics said it was impossible, but it shot forward like a bullet weaving between the panicking Zarn vessels with impossible precision. Every time it fired, a different weapon emerged. Different effect, different result, different nightmare. The third ship was hit by something that affected molecular bonds. The crew watched in horror as their hull began to unravel like thread being pulled from a sweater. Metal peeled away in long strips, exposing internal compartments to vacuum systems, failing in cascading sequence, until nothing remained but scattered debris. The fourth ship suffered a different fate. A weapon struck it that seemed to affect gravity itself. The entire vessel began to crumple, inward armor plates, folding like paper support beams, bending like plastic, the 1-kilometer-long cruiser compressed into a sphere barely 50 meters across. The crew died instantly, crushed beyond recognition, their ship transformed into a metallic tombstone. The fifth ship was hit by something that caused temporal distortion. The brand-new warship aged rapidly, decades passing in seconds. Hull plates, rusted and corroded systems failed from centuries of wear, until what had been a proud vessel became a derelict hulk that looked like it had been drifting for 1,000 years. 5 ships destroyed, the voice announced. 2 remaining. Capture protocols authorized. The 6th and 7th ships tried desperately to flee. Their engines burned at maximum power, every system pushed beyond safe limits in a desperate attempt to escape. The human ship released something, a pulse of energy that spread out in a sphere, touching both fleeing vessels simultaneously. Every system shut down. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply off. Engines stopped. Weapons powered down. Life support failed. Emergency lighting died. The ships became dead hulks drifting on momentum, their crews trapped in darkness, suffocating slowly in the silence. 2 ships disabled and captured. Enemy force neutralized. Total engagement time 4 minutes 17 seconds. Awaiting further orders. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Thrax stared at the tactical display showing his squadron reduced to 2 lifeless hulks and scattered debris. His mandibles trembled. His armor plates, usually so strong and imposing, seemed to rattle. "How many ships do they have?" he whispered. His tactical officer's voice cracked. "Sir, that was 1 ship. 1 ship just destroyed 7 heavy cruisers in 4 minutes. And there are 239 more, just like it, waiting behind it." The rest of the Zarn fleet hung in space, paralyzed by the impossibility of what they'd just witnessed. 200 heavy cruisers crewed by the galaxy's most feared warriors, and not one of them wanted to move forward. Because now they understood what they were facing. Not farmers, not merchants, not the peaceful neighbors who'd spent 3 centuries smiling and nodding and pretending to be harmless. Apex predators who'd been pretending to be prey for so long that the galaxy forgot what they really were. A new voice came over the communication channels. Not synthesized, human, female, cold as the void between stars. "Commander Thrak, this is Admiral Kira Thornfield. You killed my daughter yesterday. You killed 40,000 civilians. You thought there would be no consequences because the Confederation voted to abandon us." There was a pause. "You were wrong," Thrak found his voice. You destroyed 7 ships with 1 vessel. This is impossible technology. Where did you go? We built it. While you were celebrating your strength, we were studying. While you were conquering, we were preparing. For 300 years, we pretended to be what the galaxy wanted us to be. But we never forgot what we had to become if the galaxy betrayed us. What do you want? Thrak demanded, trying to inject strength back into his voice. Surrender tribute. We can negotiate. I don't want negotiation. I want you to understand something. That ship you just saw, it's our smallest class, a scout vessel. We have 239 more of them here, and they're the weakest things in our fleet. On the tactical display, the human formation began to shift. Ships larger than the scout emerged from the formation. Cruisers, destroyers, battleships, dreadnoughts that dwarfed even Thrak's flagship. And behind them all, a massive vessel that was less a ship and more a mobile fortress, 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that made the scouts' armament look like toys. The Retribution, Kira's flagship. Here's what's going to happen, Kira's voice continued. Your fleet will remain in this position. Any ship that tries to flee will be disabled. Any ship that fires will be destroyed. You will sit here and think about what you did to New Harvest. And then, her voice dropped to something below freezing. Then I'm going to show you what happens when you wake a sleeping apex species. On the Retribution's bridge, Kira stood surrounded by holographic displays showing the frozen Zarn fleet. Helena Morse stepped up beside her. Admiral, we've successfully intimidated them. They're not moving if we offer terms now. No, Helena blinked. Ma'am, they don't get terms, not yet. Kira's eyes remained fixed on the display on the ship markers representing the fleet that had burned her daughter alive. They need to understand something that the galaxy forgot. There's a cost to atrocity, a real cost. Not diplomatic protests, not economic sanctions, an actual tangible price paid in blood and steel. Admiral, with respect, we've already destroyed 7 ships. We've demonstrated overwhelming superiority. If we continue, if we stop now, this happens again to some other colony, some other daughter. Kira turned to face her intelligence officer. The galaxy spent 3 centuries teaching itself that violence has no consequences, that barbarians can be reasoned with, that strength doesn't matter as long as everyone agrees to be civilized. She looked back at the Zarn fleet. New Harvest proved that was a lie. Now we teach a different lesson. She touched her command panel. All ships execute Protocol Harbinger. Full fleet engagement. Total superiority demonstration. Show them what we are. Across the human fleet, 240 warships moved forward as one. The Zarn fleet scrambled to respond. 200 ships against 240. On paper, nearly equal odds. Commander Thrak allowed himself a moment of hope. Maybe the scout had been a fluke. Maybe their conventional fleet was just that conventional. The hope lasted exactly 15 seconds. The human ships opened fire, and the Zarn fleet discovered what 300 years of hidden technological development looked like. Weapons that bent gravity, crushing ships like tin cans. Energy beams that didn't just penetrate shields, but shut them down, leaving hulls naked to follow up strikes. Missiles that didn't travel through space, but teleported directly into enemy engine rooms, detonating from within. Electronic warfare systems that turned Zarn computers against their own ships, reprogramming weapons to fire on neighboring vessels. It wasn't a battle. It was a physics lecture delivered through applied violence. The Zarn fleet fought back with everything they had, plasma cannons that could melt asteroids, kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds, tactical nuclear warheads. The full arsenal of a species that had conquered 17 worlds through military might. Every single shot hit the human shields and vanished, erased, deleted, removed from reality. The human ships didn't even slow down. Captain Morse watched the tactical display with professional detachment, calling out status reports in a steady voice. Enemy fleet attempting Delta Formation dispersal, compensating. 70 ships destroyed, 90 ships destroyed. Enemy attempting emergency jump to Eftilon Somme. Jam their jump drives, Kira ordered. Jamming in effect. Enemy fleet locked in real space. 120 ships destroyed. Enemy force cohesion collapsing. On the Zarn side, panic was spreading like wildfire. Ships broke formation, fleeing in random directions. Some tried to surrender, some tried to fight. Some simply powered down everything and drifted, hoping to be overlooked. None of it mattered. The human fleet moved through them like sharks through a school of fish. Precise, efficient, utterly without mercy. 150 ships destroyed or disabled, Morse reported. Enemy casualties approaching 90%. Admiral, they're broadcasting surrender signals. Continue operations. Ma'am. They didn't stop when Lyra surrendered. Kira's voice was flat. They wanted to teach humanity a lesson about power. We're returning the education. Morse swallowed hard but continued her report. 170 ships destroyed, 50 remaining, 40, 30. Thrax's flagship, the Inevitable Conquest, was one of the last ships still fighting. He stood on his bridge, surrounded by flames and dying crew members, mandibles clicking frantically as he tried to coordinate what remained of his fleet. Fall back to defensive formation, concentrate fire on their flagship. If we can take out their command ship. A human destroyer appeared directly in front of him. It hadn't flown there, it had simply appeared, teleportation technology that shouldn't exist, making it impossible to track or target. It fired once. The weapon hit the Inevitable Conquest bridge shields and did something impossible. The shields remained intact but became permeable to air. Atmosphere began screaming out through the solid energy barrier, pulling crew members toward the hull, suffocating them where they stood. Thrak watched his crew die, gasping for air that was being pulled into space through shields that should have protected them. The human destroyer moved on to its next target, leaving Thrak's flagship dying but intact, a calculated mercy that felt more like cruelty. 20 ships remaining, Morse called out. 15, 10. Then finally it was over. 10 Azarn ships remained. 10 out of 200. The survivors drifted in space powerless, their crews trapped inside waiting for the killing blow. It didn't come. Instead, Admiral Kira Thornfield's voice filled every communication channel, broadcasting to the survivors and beyond, knowing that the Confederation was monitoring everything. Attention, surviving Zarn vessels. You have been defeated. Your fleet is destroyed. Your warriors are dead or disabled. You came to human space thinking we were weak, thinking we wouldn't fight back, thinking 300 years of peace meant we'd forgotten how to hunt. Her voice grew colder. You were wrong. We didn't forget. We just chose not to show you what we were capable of because showing it meant we'd have to use it. But you forced our hand. You killed 40,000 civilians. You burned my daughter alive. You gave us no choice. A pause. Now here's the part you don't expect. We're not going to kill you. We're going to let you survive. We're going to rescue your crews from the disabled ships. We're going to provide medical care for your wounded. We're going to treat you better than you treated New Harvest. Confusion rippled through the Zarn survivors. Mercy. From apex predators. We're doing this not because you deserve it. You don't. We're doing this because, unlike you, we remember that we're supposed to be civilized. That strength without restraint is just murder. That victory without honor is hollow. Kira's voice became steel. But understand this. We're letting you live so you can carry a message back to the Zarn Dominion. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity isn't what they thought. Tell them that the farmers and merchants they dismissed spent 300 years building weapons they hoped they'd never have to use. And tell them that if they ever threaten human worlds again, next time we won't stop at 10 ships. Next time we'll bring all 3,400 vessels to Zarn home space. And next time we won't show mercy. Silence fell across the battlefield. Then Kira added more quietly, my daughter's name was Lyra. She was 32 years old. She taught children how to grow wheat. She never hurt anyone. She built things instead of destroying them. You killed her because you could. Because you thought there would be no consequences. Another pause. Today you learn that there are always consequences. You just don't see them until the predators decide to stop hiding their teeth. She cut the transmission. Around her, the Retribution's bridge crew stood in silence. They just participated in the most one-sided battle in recent galactic history. 200 ships destroyed in less than 4 hours. Not one human ship damaged. Not one crew member injured. Total. Complete, absolute dominance. Helena Morse stepped close to Kira and spoke quietly. Admiral, that was brutal. The galaxy is watching. They're going to see this and they're going to see what happens when you attack us, Kira interrupted. Good. Let them see. Let them understand. She turned to face her intelligence officer. For 300 years, humanity played by the galaxy's rules. We voted. We debated. We trusted that civilization would protect the innocent. And when we needed that protection, most of the Confederation voted no. She gestured at the tactical display, showing the destroyed Zarn fleet. This is what happens when the civilized world decides that protecting the weak isn't worth the political cost. The hunters wake up, and once they're awake, the whole galaxy has to adapt. And now, Morse asked. Kira pulled up a galactic map. Red markers showed Zarn military positions across 40 star systems, over 10,000 ships. The remaining 98% of their fleet. Now we teach the rest of them the same lesson. Every single Zarn ship, every military installation, every command center. We dismantle their capacity for aggression piece by piece until they can never threaten another colony again. Admiral, that's a full-scale war. That could take months. It'll take 60 days, Kira said calmly. I've already run the projections. 60 days to break the Zarn dominion completely. She looked at Morse. You asked what happens now. Now we show the galaxy what 300 years of preparation looks like. Now we demonstrate why humanity spent centuries building weapons we hoped we'd never use. She touched her command panel. All ships prepare for extended operations. Plot courses for the Zarn core systems. We're taking this war to their territory, and we're not stopping until every single ship that could threaten human civilians is scrap metal. Around the bridge, crew members straightened in their stations. They'd signed up for defense. Now they were being asked to become something more. But when they looked at their admiral, at the woman who'd lost her daughter because the galaxy voted to abandon them, they understood. This wasn't conquest. This was a lesson, a message written in fire and steel across the galaxy. The human fleet jumped to FTL, leaving behind the wreckage of 200 Zarn ships in a battlefield that would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. The engagement that would later be known as the 4-Minute War. Though it actually lasted 4 hours, the name came from that first brutal demonstration with the scout ship was over. But the real war was just beginning. And across the galaxy, in the halls of the Confederation Council, in the war rooms of a dozen different species, in the quiet conversations of beings who thought they understood how power worked, a new calculation was being made. Humanity had played the part of harmless neighbors for 300 years. But the mask was off now. The predators were awake. And the entire galactic order was about to be rewritten by a species that everyone had underestimated. Admiral Kira Thornfield stood on her bridge looking at the stars, thinking about a daughter who died in wheat fields because diplomacy failed. And she made a promise. Never again. No matter what it cost. No matter how many ships she had to destroy or how many enemies she had to make. Never again. Day 7 of the war. The Confederation Council chambers on Centauri Prime had never been so quiet. 147 species represented in the Grand Circular Hall, and not one delegate spoke above a whisper. They watched the holographic displays showing tactical updates from the Zarn front with the stunned silence of people witnessing the impossible. 7 days, 3 Zarn core systems, 4,000 enemy ships engaged, human casualties still 0. Chancellor Varen, a Centauran diplomat with elaborate cranial ridges that denoted his high station, stood at the central podium. His blue-tinted skin had taken on an unhealthy pale shade. He'd been chancellor for 40 years, presiding over an era of unprecedented peace and prosperity. That era had ended 7 days ago. We are receiving reports, he said, his voice carefully controlled, that the human fleet has destroyed or disabled 2,000 Zarn military vessels in the past week. They have cracked planetary shields on 3 Zarn colony worlds, shields that should have taken months to penetrate in under 6 hours each. They are using weapons technology that violates everything we understand about physics. He paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. And they are doing all of this without taking a single casualty. They're not fighting a war, they're conducting an extermination. Ambassador Torvin of the Regelian Collective stood, a tall, crystalline being whose body refracted light in complex patterns. Chancellor, we must intervene. The Zarn committed atrocities. Yes, but this response is disproportionate. This is genocide. Is it? The voice came from the back of the chamber. Every delegate turned. A woman walked down the center aisle. She wore the black uniform of the Earth Defense Force, moving with the precise steps of someone who'd spent a lifetime on military vessels. Her ice blue eyes swept across the assembled representatives with an expression that could freeze helium. Admiral Kira Thornfield had come to the Confederation Council. Admiral, Chancellor Varen said, struggling to maintain composure. You were not invited to. I resigned my commission in the combined fleet. I'm no longer bound by Confederation protocols. Kira walked to the center of the chamber, standing beneath the holographic displays showing the Zarn systems under assault. But I thought the council might want to hear from the person they abandoned before you vote on whether to protect the people who murdered my daughter. Silence. 40,000 civilians. Kira continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. That's how many people died on New Harvest. The Zarn bombed them for 6 hours. Hospitals, schools, residential districts, agricultural zones. They burned everything. She looked up at the tactical displays. You voted on whether those 40,000 people deserve protection. 89 of you voted no. 58 voted yes. The majority decided that defending human colonists wasn't worth the political risk. Ambassador Torvin's crystalline structure flickered with agitation. The council believed that diplomatic solutions. My daughter was an agricultural engineer. Kira interrupted, her voice cutting like a blade. She taught children how to grow wheat on a world where nothing should grow. Her last words to me were, I love you. Kira's hands clenched behind her back, the only visible sign of emotion. Then the transmission cut out, because a Zarn plasma bomb vaporized the communications building, along with everyone inside it. She was 32 years old. She never hurt anyone, she built things. She created life where there was none. A pause. And you voted that she wasn't worth defending. Chancellor Varen cleared his throat. Admiral, we understand your loss. We truly do. But your response has been extreme. 2,000 ships destroyed. Entire military installations leveled. You're systematically dismantling the Zarn Dominion's capacity for self-defense. Yes, Kira said simply. That's exactly what I'm doing. You can't simply watch me. Kira gestured at the displays. For 300 years, humanity played by your rules. We voted, we debated, we trusted in the system. We trusted that when evil came, civilization would stand together. Her voice dropped to something colder than vacuum. Then evil came, and civilization voted to look the other way. So now humanity is writing new rules. She turned in a slow circle, making eye contact with delegates from dozens of species. You want to know why we hid our military capabilities for 3 centuries? Because we knew this day would come. We knew that eventually someone would test whether the Confederation's principles actually meant anything, whether your promises were real or just comfortable words. She stopped facing the Chancellor directly. You failed that test, so now we operate under different principles. And what principles are those? Demanded Ambassador Torvin. Kira's expression hardened. Si vis pacem para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. It's an ancient Earth saying. For 300 years you forgot it. You made weakness into a virtue. You called it enlightenment. She shook her head. But weakness doesn't create peace. It just invites predators to the door. And when the predators come, you need something stronger than diplomatic protests to stop them. So you become predators yourself, another delegate called out. We already were, Kira replied. We just learned to hide it because that's what you wanted. Because we believed in your dream of peace. Her expression hardened. But dreams end when you wake up. New Harvest was our wake-up call. Now the whole galaxy gets to see what humanity looks like when we stop hiding. Chancellor Varen raised his hands placatingly. Admiral, please. We acknowledge that the Council's response to the New Harvest situation was insufficient, but surely you can see that your current course of action is leading toward total war. The Zarn Dominion still has 8,000 ships. If you continue this campaign, 60 days, Kira interrupted. That's how long it will take to dismantle every Zarn military asset that could threaten civilian populations. Then we stop. She clasped her hands behind her back. You see, unlike the Zarn, we don't want conquest. We want security. Once they can't hurt anyone else, we'll help them rebuild. We'll establish trade agreements. We'll integrate them into a new security framework. A security framework you control, Ambassador Torvin accused. A security framework where your promises actually mean something, Kira countered. Where attacks on civilians have immediate and severe consequences. Where strength protects the weak instead of enabling the strong to prey on them. She looked around the chamber one last time. You had 300 years to build that framework. You failed. So humanity is building it now, with or without your approval. Day 15. Captain Helena Morse stood in the intelligence center aboard the Retribution, surrounded by holographic maps showing the progression of the war. Red markers indicated Zarn military positions, thousands of ships, hundreds of installations, all being systematically eliminated. The door opened and Admiral Thornfield entered. Status report, Kira said, studying the maps. 5th and 6th fleets have secured the Tarnek system. Zarn defensive platforms destroyed, military shipyards disabled. Civilian infrastructure intact. Helena pulled up detailed statistics. Total enemy vessels destroyed or captured to date 4,200. And the civilians? We've been following your protocols, Admiral. Precision strikes only. Civilian casualties estimated at less than 1,000 across all engagements, primarily from Zarn military positioning weapons in populated areas. We've been broadcasting warnings and evacuation routes before each strike. Kira nodded slowly. Good. Pull up the projections for the next phase. Helena manipulated the displays showing planned operations across a dozen star systems. If we maintain current pace, we'll reach the Zarn homeworld system in 40 days. That's where things get complicated. Show me. The display zoomed in on a blue-green world orbiting a yellow sun. Zarn Prime, population 14 billion. The Zarn High Council is consolidating their remaining fleet here. 6,000 ships in defensive formation around the homeworld. They're using the civilian population as a shield, betting that we won't attack when it risks billions of lives. Kira studied the tactical situation in silence. Helena watched her admiral carefully, seeing the calculations running behind those ice-blue eyes. They're right to bet that way, Kira said finally. We're not going to massacre civilians to win a war. That would make us exactly what they thought we were. Then how do we proceed? We can't just leave them with 6,000 ships. We don't. Kira touched a control and a new set of schematics appeared. We use Helios. Helena felt her stomach drop. Admiral, once we deploy that platform, every species in the galaxy will know we have star-killer capability. The political ramifications. The galaxy needs to know, Kira interrupted. They need to understand that we have the power to commit genocide and that we choose not to. That's the whole point. She pulled up the Helios schematics, a massive orbital platform 30 kilometers long, capable of destabilizing a star's fusion reactions. A weapon that could trigger supernovas. A weapon that could sterilize entire solar systems. A weapon humanity had built in secret over the past century, hoping never to use it. We jump Helios into the Zarn Prime system, Kira said. We give them 24 hours to surrender unconditionally. We broadcast our intentions to every species in the galaxy, and we wait. And if they don't surrender, Kira looked at her intelligence officer, then I make the hardest decision of my life, day 55. The Helios platform materialized at the edge of the Zarn Prime system in a flash of exotic radiation. It was enormous, an asteroid that had been hollowed out and transformed into the most devastating weapon ever constructed. Its surface bristled with emitters capable of projecting focused gravitic beams directly into a star's core. Every sensor in the system immediately detected it. Alarms screamed on 6,000 Zarn warships. Civilian populations on the planet below looked up at their sky and saw the death of their world hanging in orbit like a sword of judgment. And Admiral Kira Thornfield began broadcasting. The transmission went out on every frequency, every communication channel. Every species across the galaxy received it simultaneously. The Confederation Council chambers on Zentari Prime filled with delegates watching in real time. On Earth, in the rebuilt New Harvest Memorial Center, survivors gathered to watch their admiral speak. Kira stood on her bridge alone in frame, wearing her black uniform, with her hands clasped behind her back. Her expression was carved from ice. This is Admiral Kira Thornfield of the Earth Defense Force, broadcasting to the Zarn High Council and to all species of the galactic community. 55 days ago, the Zarn Dominion attacked the human colony of New Harvest, killing 40,000 unarmed civilians. The Galactic Confederation voted against intervention. The Zarn believed this meant there would be no consequences. She paused, letting that sink in across 1,000 worlds. They were wrong. In the past 8 weeks, humanity has destroyed or disabled over 5,000 Zarn military vessels. We have dismantled their capacity to project force beyond their home system. We have done this without human casualties while minimizing civilian deaths through precision targeting and advanced warnings. The camera pulled back slightly, showing the tactical display behind her Helios platform, in position, its target solutions calculated and ready. The platform you see in orbit of Zarn Prime is designated Helios. It is a stellar destabilization weapon. If activated, it will cause the Zarn sun to go supernova within 6 hours. The resulting explosion will sterilize every world in this system. 14 billion people will die. The Zarn species will effectively cease to exist. On Zarn Prime, panic was spreading. On the Confederation Council, delegates sat frozen in horror. Across the galaxy, 1 billion conversations stopped. We are now offering the Zarn High Council a choice: unconditional surrender within 24 hours, followed by complete disarmament and participation in a new security framework. In return, humanity will help rebuild your military infrastructure under international oversight, establish fair trade agreements, and provide humanitarian aid to your civilian population. Kira's expression didn't change, but her voice took on a harder edge. Or refuse. Maintain your military stance. Force us to activate Helios. Choose extinction over the pride of surrender. She stepped closer to the camera. I want to be absolutely clear about something. We built this weapon not because we wanted to use it, but because we needed to prove we could use it. We needed the galaxy to understand that humanity has the capacity for absolute destruction. But more importantly, we need the galaxy to understand that we choose restraint. A pause. My daughter died because the civilized galaxy forgot that evil exists. That sometimes strength is the only language monsters understand. The Zarn attacked us because they believed we were weak. They were wrong. We're not weak, we're disciplined. There's a difference. Another pause longer. The Confederation Council believes this is genocide. They're wrong. Genocide is what happened to New Harvest. 40,000 people burned alive because they were inconvenient to someone else's ambitions. What we're offering is justice with mercy, a chance for the Zarn people to survive and rebuild under a framework that prevents them from ever committing atrocities again. She looked directly into the camera. To the Zarn High Council, you have 24 hours. Choose wisely. Choose life. But understand that if you choose death, if you force our hand, we will activate Helios. And we will live with that decision for the rest of our lives. We'll carry the weight of 14 billion deaths because sometimes the choice isn't between good and evil. Sometimes it's between terrible and worse. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. Don't make me become a mass murderer to prove that mass murder has consequences. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, silence reigned. Hour 16 of the countdown. Commander Garrett Vance entered Admiral Thornfield's ready room and found her standing at the viewport staring at the distant sun of Zarn Prime. A cup of coffee sat untouched on her desk. She hadn't slept in 36 hours. Admiral, Vance said quietly, the Council is calling for an immediate ceasefire. They're threatening sanctions against Earth if we proceed with Helios activation. Let them threaten. Kira didn't turn around. They had their chance to prevent this. Ma'am, if we actually activate that platform, we'll be responsible for the deaths of 14 billion people. That's not justice. I know what it is, Commander. Her voice was hollow. Do you think I don't know? Do you think I haven't been standing here calculating exactly how many children are on that planet? How many farmers and teachers and engineers who are just like Lyra, just trying to build something good? She finally turned to face him, and Vance was shocked by what he saw in her eyes. Not cold calculation, not military resolve, exhaustion, pain, the weight of a decision that could break anyone. I'm not a monster, Garrett. I don't want to kill 14 billion people. The thought makes me sick, but I need them to believe I will. I need the Zarn High Council to understand that we're serious, that attacking civilians has a cost so terrible that no one will ever risk it again. And if they call your bluff, Kira's expression hardened, then it's not a bluff. Vance felt ice in his veins. Admiral, do you know what Lyra's last words to me were? Kira interrupted. She said, I love you. She walked back to the viewport. I've been standing here trying to figure out what love means in this context. Does love mean I protect the galaxy from future atrocities, even if it costs 14 billion lives? Or does love mean I show mercy to people who showed none to my daughter? What's the answer? I don't know. She placed a hand against the viewport. But I have 8 more hours to figure it out. Hour 23, 57 minutes remaining. The Retribution's bridge was silent as a tomb. Every crew member at their station watching the countdown, watching the Zarn homeworld, waiting to see if their admiral would give the order that would make them all complicit in the largest massacre in galactic history. Helena Morse stood at her intelligence station monitoring communications from Zarn Prime. Admiral, we're intercepting civilian broadcasts from the planet's surface. Riots in major cities. Military attempting to maintain order. The civilian government is demanding the High Council surrender. They're begging us not to fire. Kira stood at her command station, hands on the console, watching the countdown. Any response from the High Council? Negative, ma'am. They're holding their position. 6,000 ships still in defensive formation. They're calling it a bluff. Status of Helios. Fully charged. Targeting solutions locked. Gravitic emitters ready. We can fire on your command, Admiral. The bridge crew waited. Some prayed. Some simply stared at their stations, unable to watch. They'd signed up to defend humanity. Now they were being asked to commit genocide. 45 minutes remaining. Admiral, Vance said quietly, we could use a warning shot. Demonstrate the platform's capability without actually destroying the sun. No. Kira's voice was flat. If we fire for effect. Anything less undermines the entire point. They need to believe we'll do it. 30 minutes remaining. A new transmission came through. Helena's hands flew across her console. Admiral, we're receiving a priority communication from Earth. It's Fleet Admiral Kane from the Confederation Council chambers. Put him through. The holographic display showed the Centauran Fleet Admiral, his blue skin pale with stress. Behind him, the Confederation Council chambers were in chaos, delegates shouting, arguing, some openly weeping. Admiral Thornfield, Kane said, his voice strained, The Council is prepared to authorize military intervention on behalf of New Harvest. Retroactively, we'll formally condemn the Zarn action and provide full reparations. We'll reaffirm Article 12. Just please don't fire that weapon. You're 60 days too late, Fleet Admiral. We made a mistake, we acknowledge that, but committing genocide won't correct it. I agree, Kira said, and Kane stopped mid-sentence. Genocide doesn't correct anything. It just creates more tragedy on top of tragedy. That's why I really hope the Zarn High Council surrenders in the next 28 minutes. And if they don't, Kane whispered. Kira looked directly into the camera. Then I'll have to decide whether proving a point is worth 14 billion lives. She cut the transmission. 20 minutes remaining. Admiral, Helena called out, Zarn military channels are going crazy. Their fleet commanders are arguing with the High Council. Some ships are breaking formation. They're refusing orders to maintain position. They're running. How many? 200 ships. No, 300. They're scattering. Kira watched the tactical display as the Zarn defensive formation began to crumble. Not from external pressure, from internal collapse. Fear doing what weapons couldn't. 15 minutes remaining. Admiral, Helena's voice rose with excitement. We're receiving a transmission from Zarn Prime. It's the civilian government. They're broadcasting a surrender announcement. They're overriding the High Council. The civilian population is storming the council chambers. The main display shifted to show images from Zarn Prime. Massive crowds surrounding government buildings. Military forces standing down, refusing to fire on their own people. And in the council chambers, members of the High Council being forcibly removed by their own security forces. 10 minutes remaining. A new voice came over the communications channel. Older, female, speaking galactic standard with a heavy Zarn accent. This is Premier Vakra of the Zarn civilian government. We are surrendering unconditionally to the Earth Defense Force. The military High Council has been removed from power. We accept your terms, all terms. We beg you not to activate the stellar weapon. Please, we have children here. We have, her voice broke. We have daughters too. Kira closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. Helios, she said quietly. Stand down. Power down all emitters. Maintain position, but disable firing capability. Around the bridge, crew members sagged with relief. Some wept openly. Helena Morse put a hand over her mouth, fighting back tears of her own. Open a channel, Kira ordered. All frequencies. Galaxy-wide broadcast. Channel open, Admiral. Kira straightened, composing herself. When she spoke, her voice was clear and steady. This is Admiral Kira Thornfield to all Zarn people and to the galactic community. The Zarn civilian government has surrendered unconditionally. I am accepting that surrender. Helios platform is standing down. No weapon will be fired. No star will die today. She paused. To the people of Zarn Prime, your leaders chose to use you as shields. Your civilian government chose to save you. That took courage. More courage than hiding behind your citizens while sending ships to murder mine. Another pause. I lost my daughter 60 days ago. She was building something beautiful, teaching children to grow food, creating life from barren soil. The Zarn military destroyed that. But I won't destroy 14 billion lives in return. Because if I did, I'd be no better than the people who killed her. She looked directly into the camera. Here's what happens now. The Zarn military will be completely disarmed. Every ship, every weapon, every military installation. You will participate in building a new security framework, one where our promises actually mean something. Where attacks on civilians result in immediate intervention. Where strength protects the weak instead of preying on them. In return, humanity will help you rebuild. We'll establish fair trade agreements. We'll provide humanitarian aid. We'll help transition your economy from military dominance to peaceful cooperation. Your children will grow up in a galaxy where they don't have to fear being burned alive because someone decided their lives weren't worth defending. Kira's voice softened. We built Helios to prove we could. We powered it down to prove we wouldn't. That's the difference between civilization and barbarism. That's the lesson the galaxy needed to learn. Power without restraint is tyranny. We've been tyrants on Earth in our past. We learned to hate what we became. Now we teach that lesson to the stars. She straightened. The 60-day war is over. We won. And we're going to spend the next 60 years making sure everyone understands what victory with honor actually means. The transmission ended. On Zarn Prime, 14 billion people looked up at their sky and wept with relief. In the Confederation Council chambers, delegates sat in stunned silence, processing what they just witnessed. Across the galaxy, a fundamental shift had occurred. Humanity had demonstrated the capacity for absolute destruction and the wisdom to refrain from using it. The predators had shown their teeth, then chosen not to bite. 10 years later, the new Harvest Memorial stood on a hill overlooking wheat fields that stretched to the horizon. 40,000 names carved in black marble, arranged in concentric circles around a central flame that never extinguished. It was the anniversary. Admiral Kira Thornfield stood before the memorial, now 68 years old, her hair fully white, her face lined with years of command and consequence. She walked with a slight limp, now not from injury but from age and the weight of carrying entire fleets on her shoulders for 4 decades. She stood before one name specifically, Lyra Thornfield, agricultural engineer, age 32. So others may live in peace. She knelt, placing wheat stalks at the base of the stone, one from David Lyra's father. He'd stopped coming to the anniversaries 3 years ago. Too painful, he'd said. She understood. Some wounds don't heal. They just scar differently. Every year I come here, Kira said quietly, knowing the memorial sensors would record her words. I asked the same question. Was it worth it? 60 days of war, 5,000 enemy ships destroyed, billions of lives threatened, all to avenge 40,000 deaths, including you. She touched the carved letters of her daughter's name. I still don't know the answer. I destroyed lives, Lyra. Not 14 billion, but thousands. Enemy crew members who probably didn't want to be there. People who had families, who had dreams, who might have been like you in different circumstances. Their blood is on my hands. A breeze rustled through the wheat fields, the hybrid strain Lyra had developed, now growing across 20 colony worlds. But then I see what your death bought. 43 conflicts resolved by human intervention in the past decade. The Zarn Dominion transformed from aggressors to peacekeepers, their former warriors now protecting the colonies they once threatened. A new framework where our promises actually mean something. A galaxy that understands strength must serve justice, not undermine it. She looked out at the wheat fields. Your wheat feeds 15 million people now. The children you taught are adults running agricultural programs across the frontier. They name their daughters after you. They plant your hybrid strains and tell stories about the woman who could make life grow anywhere. Kira's voice broke slightly. You built life, I took it. We both shaped this galaxy, sweetheart. I just wish I could ask if you'd be proud of me or disappointed. If you'd understand why I did what I did, or if you'd shake your head and tell me I missed the whole point of everything you stood for. Behind her, footsteps approached. She didn't turn around. Admiral, said a familiar voice. Commander Garrett Vance, now Admiral Vance, commander of the ED-F 3rd Fleet. At 45, he'd become one of the youngest fleet admirals in human history. Ceremony's about to start. They're waiting for you. Let them wait, Kira said. I'm talking to my daughter. Vance moved to stand beside her, looking at the memorial wall. You know what I remember most about the war, not the battles, not the victory, the moment when you chose not to fire Helios. When you had every justification to commit genocide and you chose mercy instead. That wasn't mercy. That was just not being a monster. No, ma'am, that was wisdom. Vance gestured at the memorial. Lyra died so the galaxy could remember evil exists. You showed restraint so the galaxy could remember good still does too. That's the balance. That's what makes us different from them. Kira was quiet for a long moment. Then she straightened, squaring her shoulders. Come on. We have young officers waiting who need to hear why they're guardians instead of conquerors. They walked together toward the memorial amphitheater where several hundred Earth Defense Force cadets had gathered. Young men and women in their 20s wearing the black uniforms with Earth insignia representing the next generation of humanity's protectors. Kira took the podium. The cadets fell silent. 10 years ago, she began. I stood on the bridge of my flagship and threatened to kill 14 billion people. I powered up a weapon that could destroy a star and gave the Zarn High Council 24 hours to surrender. For 23 hours and 50 minutes, I genuinely didn't know if I'd give the order to fire. She let that settle over the young officers. Some of you think that makes me a hero. Some of you think it makes me a monster. Here's what I want you to understand. It makes me human. Flawed, capable of terrible things in the name of justice. And that's exactly why we have rules, procedures, oversight. Because the moment you start believing you're incapable of becoming a monster is the moment you're most at risk of becoming one. She walked to the edge of the stage, looking at their young faces. You're joining the Earth Defense Force at a time when humanity has more power than any species in galactic history. We have weapons that can crack planets, technology that makes us nearly invincible in combat. The capacity to enforce our will across 1,000 star systems. She paused. And that's exactly why you need to be more than warriors. You need to be philosophers, ethicists, people who understand that power means nothing without the wisdom to know when not to use it. A young cadet raised her hand. Admiral, what if we face another situation like New Harvest? What if the Confederation fails us again? Then we intervene anyway, Kira said simply. But we intervene to protect, not to conquer. We save lives, not end them. We build what failed into something that actually works instead of destroying the whole system because it disappointed us once. She looked across the assembled cadets. The Zarn attacked us because they saw weakness. We responded with overwhelming force. But we stopped. We showed mercy. We helped rebuild. That's the model. That's what separates guardians from tyrants. Another cadet stood. Admiral, some species still fear us. They say we're predators, waiting for another excuse to show our teeth. Kira smiled, but it was a sad expression. They're right to be wary. We are apex predators. We spent 300 years hiding that fact because that's what the galaxy wanted. But New Harvest taught us that hiding your nature doesn't keep you safe. It just makes you a victim waiting to happen. She clasped her hands behind her back. So yes, we're predators now, openly, honestly. But we're predators who choose to protect the herd instead of hunting it. That's the choice every one of you will face in your careers. When you have power, when you have the advantage, when you could take what you want, will you protect or will you prey? She gestured at the memorial behind her. 40,000 people that died because the galaxy forgot that choice matters, because they thought civilization meant everyone would naturally choose to be good. But evil doesn't go away just because you vote that it shouldn't exist. Someone has to stand against it. Someone has to be strong enough to fight monsters and wise enough to not become one. Kira's voice grew stronger. That's your job now. You're not just military officers. You're guardians of a principle that says strength serves justice, not the other way around. You'll face situations where the right choice isn't clear, where mercy looks like weakness, where restraint feels like failure. She looked directly at them. In those moments, remember this place. Remember 40,000 names on that wall. Remember that every action has consequences that echo across generations. She walked back to center stage. My daughter built life, taught children, grew wheat where nothing should grow. She was everything good about humanity. I destroyed 5,000 ships to avenge her death. And you know what? She'd have hated that. She'd have wanted me to show mercy, to build instead of burn, to prove that strength can create rather than destroy. Kira's eyes swept across the young faces. I made my choices. Now you'll make yours. Just remember, we're not feared because we're strong. Plenty of species are strong. We're feared because we're strong and restrained, because we built weapons that could sterilize galaxies and then chose not to use them. That combination of power and wisdom, that's what changed everything. She straightened to attention. You're dismissed to visit the memorial. Read the names. Think about what they died for. And when you take your posts on ships and stations across this galaxy, carry those names with you. They're the answer to every difficult question you'll face. Is this action worthy of their sacrifice? Would I dishonor their memory by choosing wrong here? The cadets stood saluting. Kira returned the salute, then watched them disperse across the memorial grounds, reading names, touching the carved stone, learning the cost of the peace they'd inherited. Admiral Vance approached again. That was quite a speech, ma'am. It was the truth. Kira looked back at Lyra's name on the wall. I just hope it's enough. Admiral Thornfield. They turned to see a young Zarn female approaching, barely 20 years old, wearing a civilian diplomatic corps uniform. Her chitinous armor plates were a lighter shade than Commander Thrax had been, indicating youth. She walked with visible nervousness. I'm Kella, she said in slightly accented galactic standard. Cultural exchange program. I wanted to meet you. Kira studied the young Zarn. Why? Because 10 years ago you could have killed my entire family. Every person I know, you had the weapon, you had the justification, and you chose not to. Kella's mandibles trembled slightly. I was 8 years old, hiding in a shelter on Zarn Prime, listening to my mother cry because she thought we were all going to die. Then your broadcast came. You powered down the weapon. You said we had daughters too. She straightened. I'm here because I want to understand what made you stop. What made you show mercy to people who showed none to your daughter? I need to understand that because someday I'll be in a position of authority in my government and I want to make better choices than our High Council did. Kira was quiet for a long moment. Then she gestured toward the memorial wall. Walk with me. They moved through the memorial together, the aging human admiral and the young Zarn diplomat. Kira stopped at Lyra's name. This is my daughter, Lyra Thornfield. She taught children how to grow wheat. Your military burned her alive. Kira's voice was steady but not cold. For 55 days, I systematically destroyed your fleet. Every day, I thought about activating Helios. Every day, I calculated whether 14 billion Zarn lives equaled 40,000 human lives, plus the deterrent value of total extinction. Kella listened, mandibles still. You want to know why I stopped? It wasn't mercy. It wasn't compassion. It was math. Kira touched the carved letters of her daughter's name. If I killed 14 billion people, I'd prove that atrocity justifies atrocity. That genocide is acceptable if you're angry enough. That power without limits is fine as long as you're the one holding it. And every species watching would learn that lesson. She looked at the young Zarn. But if I built the most devastating weapon imaginable and then chose not to use it, if I showed that strength can be restrained, that justice doesn't require matching evil with evil, then maybe, just maybe, the next time someone faces that choice, they remember. They choose restraint. They prove that civilization means something. So you spared us to teach a lesson, Kella said quietly. I spared you because killing you would make me exactly what I was fighting against. Kira turned to face her fully. Your High Council saw humans as weak because we built wheat instead of warships. My daughter died because they saw kindness as vulnerability. If I responded by exterminating your species, I'd prove they were right. That kindness is weakness. That only monsters survive. She looked back at the memorial. I needed to prove this opposite, that you can be strong enough to destroy anyone and wise enough not to. That mercy isn't weakness, it's strength under control. That's the only way this galaxy survives. Not by eliminating every threat, but by teaching every threat and that there's a better way. Kella was silent for a long moment. Then she bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect in Zarn culture. Your daughter would be proud of you, Admiral. Kira's eyes glistened, but no tears fell. I hope you're right. I really do. 3 months later, the galaxy had changed. 43 conflicts resolved by human intervention. 17 species had requested human protection treaties. The Confederation had reorganized around a new framework, one with enforcement mechanisms and human oversight. Trade had quadrupled between former enemies. Zarn children attended human universities. Human agricultural techniques fed billions across 12 species worlds. It wasn't perfect. Some species still feared humanity's power. But fear with respect was better than contempt without consequences. The predators were guardians now, and the herd was learning to sleep easier. The Retribution floated in orbit around Earth, humanity's homeworld. Aboard the ship, Admiral Kira Thornfield stood in her ready room reviewing a proposal on her datapad. The door chimed. Come, Admiral Vance entered carrying a priority message tablet. Ma'am, you need to see this. It's from the frontier, the Kolvax sector. Kira took the tablet, reading quickly. Her expression hardened. Raiders. Yes, ma'am. Attacking an independent colony. 2,000 civilians. The colony's not part of the Confederation. They're outside protected space. No treaty coverage. And they're requesting help anyway. Yes, ma'am. They know our reputation. They're asking if humanity will intervene, even without treaty obligations. Kira set down the tablet and walked to her viewport, looking at Earth below the blue-green world, where humanity had spent 10,000 years learning to be apex predators, then 10,000 more learning to be civilized. What's the fleet status? 5th and 7th, ready to deploy. We could be there in 6 hours. She turned to face him. Admiral Vance, you've learned everything I can teach you about command, but there's one lesson left. She clasped her hands behind her back. When do we intervene? Vance thought carefully. When the strong prey on the weak. When evil acts and civilization looks away. When someone needs defending and no one else will stand up. And what makes that our responsibility? Because we can defend them. Because power that serves only itself is tyranny. Because Lyra died so we'd remember evil exists, and that means we have to stand against it. He met her eyes. Not for profit, not for territory, not even for thanks. We do it because someone must, and we're the only ones who can. Kira smiled, a real smile, this time warm and proud. You've learned well. You're ready. She picked up the tablet. 5th and 7th fleets are under your command. Deploy to Kolvax sector. Protect those civilians. Show the galaxy that humanity's promise extends beyond treaty obligations. She paused. And Garrett, remember what we are. Not conquerors, not missionaries, guardians. We protect. We don't rule. We defend. We don't dominate, understand? Yes, ma'am, he saluted. What about you? Me. Kira looked out at Earth. I'm retiring, for real this time. I've carried enough weight for one lifetime. Time to let your generation show what you've learned. The fleet won't be the same without you. Good. That means you'll make it better. She returned his salute. Go save those colonists, and when you're done, don't wait for thank you. Just move on to the next people who need help. That's what Guardians do. Vance left. Through her viewport, Kira watched the 5th and 7th fleets begin their deployment sequence. Beautiful ships, powerful ships, ships that could crack planets, but chose instead to protect them. Her personal comm chimed, a message from the rebuilt New Harvest colony. She opened it. A video played children in a wheat field laughing and running through golden grain that reached over their heads. Lyra's hybrid strain growing strong and healthy. One little girl, maybe 8 years old, looked directly at the camera. Thank you, Admiral Thornfield, she said with a gap-toothed smile. My teacher says your daughter made this wheat. She says you made us safe. When I grow up, I want to be like both of you, building things and protecting things. The video ended. Kira closed her eyes, letting the tears finally fall. After 10 years of carrying the weight of 60 days of war, of 5,000 destroyed ships, of the choice not to fire Helios, she finally let herself grieve. And for the first time since New Harvest burned, she felt something other than guilt. Peace. Not the false peace of 300 years of comfortable lies. Real peace. Earned peace. The peace that comes from knowing you had the power to be a monster and chose to be human instead. She opened her comm channel one last time. This is Admiral Kira Thornfield to all Earth Defense Force vessels. I'm officially retiring effective immediately. Command transfers to Fleet Admiral Garrett Vance and the next generation of officers. You've inherited a galaxy that respects strength and fears our capacity for violence. Your job is to teach them to respect our capacity for restraint even more. She paused, looking at Earth below. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We carry the weight of terrible choices. But we're guardians now, not because someone asked us to be, not because treaties obligate us, but because when we look in the mirror, we need to see people worthy of the sacrifices made to get us here. 40,000 people died so we'd remember that evil exists. 5,000 more died so we'd remember that evil has consequences. 14 billion lived because we remembered that mercy matters more than revenge. Remember all of it, the good and the bad, the victories and the pods. Remember what we're capable of, both the terrible and the beautiful. And when you face your own impossible choices, remember that the hardest decisions are the ones that define whether we're civilized or just clever monsters with better weapons. This is Admiral Kira Thornfield signing off. Fair winds and following seas to all of you. May you never have to make the choices I made. But if you do, may you choose as well as you can and forgive yourselves for the rest. She closed the channel. Outside her windows, the 5th and 7th fleets jumped to FTL, racing to protect colonists they'd never met, asking nothing in return except the knowledge that they'd done what was right. The predators were awake. The galaxy knew their teeth. But more importantly, the galaxy knew their restraint. And that choice between what we can do and what we should do was the gift that Lyra Thornfield's death had purchased. A lesson written in fire and steel and mercy across the stars. A lesson that would echo through generations. The choice that separates civilization from chaos. Guardians from tyrants. Humans from monsters. Real strength isn't the ability to destroy everything. It's the wisdom to know when not to.